This is the heart, which is composed of many different areas, including the right atrium, the sinoatrial node, or the pacemaker, the atrioventricular node, the atrioventricular bundle, Purkinje fibers, the left atrium, more Purkinje fibers, and the bundle branches. The heart is where your heartbeat originates. The heartbeat is controlled by the cardiac conduction system. This system is composed of 5 steps which rhythmically work together to continuously conduct electrical signals, which pump blood through the heart and ultimately the entire body. In order to create the heartbeat, the cardiac conduction system generates and conducts the electrical signals in the following order. The sinoatrial node will fire. This node is found in the right atrium, right under the epicardium, near the superior vena cava. This is the part of the heart that will allow your body to create a rhythm for the heartbeat and determine how fast or slow it will go. The signal from this node will spread throughout the atria, which then leads the atrioventricular nodes to fire. This node is found at the lower end of the interatrial septum near the right valve. This node is very important to the safety of the heart, as this acts as a gateway or insulator that prevents different currents from entering the ventriculars from any other route. Following the firing of the node, the excitation spreads down to the atrioventricular bundle. This bundle is the pathway where the signals from the atrioventricular node leave. This is also where the signals can either branch to the left or the right bundles, therefore entering the interventricular septum and ascending toward the apex. In the last part of the 5 steps is where the Purkinje fibers distribute excitation through ventricular myocardium. The left ventricle has a more elaborate network than the right ventricle. The cardiocytes then will pass the ions from cell to cell through their gap junctions. These steps will continue over and over, which allow our heart to continuously beat in a rhythm. If we want to physically see our heartbeat and record it, we would use an electrocardiograph, which produces a record on paper normally, which is called an electrocardiogram, which is also referred to as ECG or EKG for short. In order to detect the electrical currents, electrodes are typically attached to the wrists, ankles, and 6 locations on the chest, which are shown in the picture. The wavelengths seen on the recording are a comprehensive image of the electrical activity of the heart. This shows the action potentials produced by the nodal and myocardial cells. Within an electrocardiogram reading, there are 3 different parts or deflections that can be seen. They are either above or below the baseline. The first is the P wave section, the second is the QRS complex, and last is the T wave. Different wavelengths will be seen as each of the 5 steps of the cardiac conduction system are being processed by the heart. The P wave is produced when a signal from the sinoatrial node spreads through the atria and depolarizes. This entire segment is about 160 milliseconds long, and that would represent the time required for the impulses to travel across the nodes all the way to the atrioventricular node. Next is the QRS complex, and this shows the small down deflection, the very large peak, and then the downward deflection as well. These wavelengths are produced when the signal from the atrioventricular node spreads through the ventricular myocardium and depolarizes the muscle. The extremely large jump is produced mainly by the depolarization of the ventricles, which are the largest part or the largest mass of the heart. Therefore, this part generates the greatest or the biggest electrical current, which allows to be seen on the electrocardiogram. Following the QRS complex, you will see the ST segment. This segment corresponds to the plateau in the myocardial action potential and will show the time that it takes the ventricles to contract and eject blood. The last part of the cycle is called the T wave, and this is generated by the repolarization of ventricles. The T wave can either be taller or shorter than the QRS complex, but it is more spread out and takes longer for the ventricles to repolarize than depolarize, so the T wave can be recognized by its relatively rounded peak. The entirety of the P, Q, R, S, and T wavelengths takes less than 1 second and will be repeated over and over and over as long as the electrocardiogram is being recorded. The EKG allows us to see the normal electrical activity of the heart and also allows us to see any deviations from this normal cycle, such as when someone is in distress or in cardiac arrest.